Resilience is a word we often associate with adults, people who have lived long enough to face life's storms and learn how to get up after every fall. But what if I told you that a 7-year-old child could teach us profound lessons about how to be resilient? This is the story of Júlia, a girl who, even at a tender age, demonstrated an inner strength that many of us can only dream of having. In a world full of uncertainties and challenges, Júlia stood out not only for her sweetness and innocence, but also for her incredible ability to overcome obstacles that would make many adults give up. Júlia grew up in a small town where financial difficulties were a constant in her family's life. Her parents, Marcos and Anna, worked tirelessly to ensure nothing was missing at home. But money was always tight, and difficult choices often had to be made. Even so, Júlia's home was full of love, and her parents did their best to make sure she and her younger brother Pedro had a happy childhood. They knew life wouldn't be easy, but they believed that with love and unity, they could overcome any challenge. From a young age, Júlia showed signs of a strong and determined personality. Despite the difficulties, she rarely complained and always found a way to see the bright side of things. Once, during a heavy storm, the roof of their house started to leak, flooding the children's room. Pedro, still very young, began to cry, frightened by the sound of the rain and water falling inside the house. Anna rushed to try to contain the leak, but she knew it would be a long night. Júlia, seeing her brother crying, grabbed her favorite blanket and gently covered him. "Don't worry, Pedro. Let's make a tent here on the floor and pretend we're camping," she said with a smile. And so, while the storm raged outside, Júlia turned what could have been a night of fear and discomfort into a fun adventure for her and her brother. This was the first lesson in resilience that Júlia taught us, the ability to adapt to adverse situations and find a way to make them less scary. Instead of despairing over the leak, she chose to see the situation as an opportunity to create something positive, showing that resilience begins with the attitude we adopt when facing challenges. The next day, with the sun shining and the roof still dripping a little, Marcos went up to the attic to try to fix the problem. Júlia, as curious as ever, asked to help. Even though she was small, she wanted to learn and understand how things worked. She grabbed a bucket, a broom, and went up with her father. While Marcos tried to fix the tiles, Júlia helped however she could, holding tools and asking questions. "Dad, why does the roof leak?" she asked, her eyes shining with curiosity. Marcos, though worried about the repair, took the moment to explain how things age and need maintenance. "Everything in life needs care, Júlia, whether it's a house, a plant, or even our feelings. If we don't take care of them, things can wear out and cause problems." This was a lesson Júlia carried with her, the importance of taking care of things before they become bigger problems. And so, while helping her father fix the roof, she learned that small acts of daily care can prevent major complications in the future. At school, Júlia was always a dedicated student, but like any child, she had her struggles. The subject that challenged her the most was math. Numbers seemed to dance in front of her, and math problems seemed impossible to solve. One day, after receiving a low grade on a test, Júlia felt discouraged. Some of her classmates made mean comments, and she felt embarrassed. But instead of giving up, Júlia decided she wanted to improve. She approached the teacher after class and asked for help. With patience and determination, she began to dedicate more time to studying math. In the days that followed, her parents noticed that she was becoming more and more focused on her books, often staying up late at night. This experience brought us the second lesson in resilience, the importance of recognizing our weaknesses and seeking help when necessary. Júlia showed us that instead of letting ourselves be defeated by difficulties, we must face them head-on and work hard to overcome them. Her determination to improve in the subjects that caused her the most trouble was a clear example of how resilience involves not just persistence, but also the humility to ask for help. Júlia's efforts began to pay off. Little by little, she started improving in her math tests. With each new grade, she felt more confident, and what once seemed like an insurmountable challenge began to feel more manageable. Her parents, proud of her, encouraged her to keep going. "You're doing a great job, Julia. We're so proud of you," her mother would say as she gave her a tight hug. Julia's journey at school wasn't limited to academic struggles. She also had to deal with emotional issues, especially peer pressure. At one point, a classmate who was jealous of Julia's progress spread a false rumor accusing her of cheating on a test. The news spread quickly, and soon Julia found herself in the middle of a difficult situation. Being unjustly accused was a hard blow for her, as she always tried to do the right thing. Instead of giving in to anger or frustration, Julia decided to stay calm and wait for the truth to come out. She knew that sooner or later, everyone would realize she hadn't done anything wrong. In the meantime, she kept focusing on her studies and continued to act with kindness and respect, even when some classmates treated her poorly. She remembered her father's words. "The truth always prevails, Julia. The important thing is that you know you're doing the right thing." And so she stood firm, knowing that her character and integrity were more important than others' opinions. Eventually, the real culprit was found, and Julia was fully exonerated. Those who had accused her felt ashamed for doubting her. Instead of holding a grudge, Julia chose to forgive and move on. This experience brought us the fourth lesson in resilience, the ability to remain calm and maintain integrity even in situations of injustice. Julia showed us that sometimes resilience lies in trusting that the truth will prevail and not letting injustice turn us into something we are not. However, life's lessons for Julia didn't stop there. One of the hardest moments in her young life happened when her beloved dog, Pipoca, fell seriously ill. Pipoca had always been her loyal companion, the friend who was by her side in both good and bad times. He was part of the family, and Julia couldn't imagine life without him. When the vet explained that Pipoca would need intensive care and that his recovery wasn't guaranteed, Julia felt the weight of fear and sadness. Instead of giving in to despair, Julia decided she would do everything she could to help Pipoca recover. She dedicated much of her time to caring for the dog. She carefully prepared his food, gave him his medicine on time, and even when she was exhausted, she stayed by his side, offering comfort and love. She talked to Pipoca, told him stories, and remembered the happy times they had spent together. It was as if, through these words and acts of love, she was passing all her strength and hope to her four-legged friend. Days went by, and against all odds, Pipoca began to show signs of improvement. It was slow progress, but steady, and with each passing day, Julia felt renewed hope. Seeing Pipoca recover, even little by little, was a victory she cherished in her heart. She knew she had done everything she could, and regardless of the final outcome, she had been a true friend to her dog. This situation teaches us the third lesson in resilience, the importance of caring for others, even when we are facing our own battles. Julia's resilience lay in her ability to offer compassion and support, even in the face of fear and loss. In addition to the challenges at home and school, Julia also faced difficult situations with her peers. On one occasion, she was unfairly accused of breaking a valuable object at school. The accusation came from a classmate who, out of jealousy or envy, decided to blame Julia without any evidence. The news spread quickly throughout the school, and soon everyone was looking at Julia with suspicion. For a child, being the target of gossip and distrust can be devastating, but Julia, with her innate wisdom, decided not to let it affect her. She knew she was innocent, and that sooner or later the truth would come to light. Instead of getting angry or withdrawing, Julia continued to act with kindness and respect, even when some classmates treated her poorly. She didn't let the injustice turn her into something she wasn't. A few days later, the real culprit was found, and Julia was fully exonerated. Instead of holding a grudge, she forgave her classmate, showing a maturity that was rare for her age. This situation brings us the fourth lesson in resilience, the ability to stay calm and maintain integrity even when facing injustices. Júlia showed us that sometimes resilience is about trusting that the truth will prevail and not letting injustice make us bitter. Another major lesson in resilience came when Júlia's father, Marcos, lost his job. The economic crisis hit the small town where they lived, and many parents like Marcos found themselves out of work overnight. The tension at home grew, and Júlia noticed something was wrong. She saw her parents talking quietly, trying to protect their children from the harsh reality they were facing. But Júlia was perceptive and soon understood that the situation was serious. Instead of feeling afraid, she decided that she needed to help in some way. Without her parents asking, Júlia started taking on more responsibilities at home. She helped take care of her younger brother, did small household chores, and always tried to lift her parents' spirits with words of encouragement. "Everything will be okay, Dad. We always find a way, don't we?" she said with a smile. She knew that even though she was small, she could make a difference in her family's life. This attitude taught us the fifth lesson in resilience, the power of solidarity and mutual support. Júlia showed us that in times of crisis, it's essential to unite forces and offer support to those we love, even if it means carrying a little more weight on our shoulders. Time passed and things started to get better. Marcos found a new job and the family began to recover. Júlia, who had been a source of strength and support during the tough times, felt proud of the role she had played. She realized that even though she was small, she had the power to make a difference in the lives of those around her. At another point in her life, Júlia decided to learn how to ride a bike. She had always dreamed of riding freely around the neighborhood, like she saw the other kids doing. Her parents, wanting to encourage her, bought a second-hand but well-maintained bike and began teaching her. The first attempts were disastrous. Júlia fell several times, skinned her knees, and almost gave up. The frustration was evident on her face, and there were moments when she wanted to quit. But even with fear and pain, Júlia decided to keep trying. Her parents encouraged her, but it was the determination inside her that pushed her to get up after every fall. "I can do it," she told herself, repeating it like a mantra as she got up and climbed back on the bike. After weeks of practice, Júlia finally managed to ride on her own without anyone's help. The wind on her face and the feeling of freedom made her smile from ear to ear. It was a personal victory she would never forget. This experience brought us the sixth lesson in resilience, the importance of persisting even when things seem impossible. Júlia showed us that to be resilient, we must be willing to fall, get up, and try again as many times as necessary. And so the little girl who was afraid of falling became a confident cyclist, always ready for new adventures. Finally, the seventh and final lesson in resilience that Júlia taught us came during a moment of reflection. In a conversation with her parents, after all the challenges she had faced over time, Júlia said something that deeply moved them. "I think every time something hard happens, it's like I get a new power to face the next bad thing." This simple sentence contained an impressive wisdom for someone so young. Júlia had understood, without even knowing it, that resilience isn't just about surviving challenges, but about learning and growing from each one. Júlia taught us that resilience is an ongoing process, a journey of self-discovery and inner strengthening. Each challenge, each fall, each moment of pain and overcoming contributes to building a solid foundation of strength and courage. And so Júlia, with her innocence and courage, showed us that we all, regardless of age, have the ability to be resilient. We just need to believe that inside of us, there is an unshakable strength, ready to emerge when we need it most. And now I ask you, what resilience lessons have you learned in your life? Have you gone through moments where you needed to gather all your inner strength to keep moving forward? Share your stories in the comments. Let's build a community together where each of us can inspire and strengthen one another. And don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel for more inspiring stories like this.